right, so we are here with Jenica from Zero Waste Wisdom blog, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her journey in the zero waste lifestyle. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what it means to live a zero waste lifestyle? What is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as mentioned, my name is Jenica Barrett, and basically a zero waste lifestyle is with the premise that you're going to try to produce as little waste as physically possible. But that's a really simple description of what it means. In general, it's about looking at what we produce, what we buy, the kind of choices we make as consumers, and making those in the most environmentally friendly way possible. And that comes across usually as reducing the waste we produce. So I have been doing this for about 3 years now, and have gotten my waste down to less than a pint of waste each month. I still compost and I still recycle, but those have also drastically reduced.
Wow. And how did you come across zero waste? How were you introduced to that?
So this is kind of an interesting story. It started off actually as a New Year's resolution kind of challenge to myself. I was an undergrad at Western, and I was noticing that even in the dorms, I was throwing out way more waste than I imagined was possible, given I wasn't cooking for myself and I didn't have any kids or animals. And so for the new year, I thought, let's just see how little trash I can produce. And then from there, I actually went to Instagram and I started following different zero waste bloggers, and that's where I first found the zero waste movement. So I came into it not knowing there was a movement, and then discovered it and kind of latched on and really found a passion in that.
All right. And you said that you've been doing zero waste for 3 years?
Yes.
All right. So what inspired you to start the Zero Waste Wisdom blog, and can you tell us a little bit about the website?
Yes. So I run a website called Zero Waste Wisdom, but really I think of it more as like a social media platform, because I also have a Facebook page, an Instagram, and a Pinterest. I've really tried to target it in as many ways as possible. But I originally started with a blog, and that was more of a way for me to document my progress. I started collecting my trash every month, and then at the end of the month I'd break it down and I'd take a picture, and then I'd blog about what was in it and why, and then from there pick things to make improvements on. And I got a lot of great feedback from people that saw them and had learned things about the recycling system and composting, and they kept asking more and more questions. And so from there, my blog became more of a resource. And now I write articles on new companies I've discovered that I'm really a fan of, that have great initiatives or zero waste packaging. I still do a breakdown of my trash every month. I've continued doing that for the entire time. So if you go on there, you can see a month by month picture, and it has gone down a little bit each time. And then I send out a newsletter, usually once a month, that kind of has a recap of the blog posts that I've covered, any new events I'm doing. I've started hosting a lot of workshops here in the community, or doing interviews kind of like this, to also have a different, not just a social media and an online platform, but a way of educating the community in person and locally.
Wow. I can imagine that taking pictures of the waste that you're producing would be a really great way to hold yourself accountable. That's the biggest problem that I've been facing, is that if I don't lay it out in that way, it's easy to just throw things away and not think about it. So that's a really great idea. So what are some of the challenges that you face living the zero waste lifestyle?
Well, one of them, going back to the comment you just made, is I've really put my lifestyle out there in a very public way. And sometimes it's not received as I'd like it to be. Sometimes I do get negative comments coming back to me, which I've learned to deal with, and to see if I can spin it in a more positive way or teach them something they didn't know about. So that's been kind of hard on a more personal level. In terms of the resources around me, it has taken me a long time to figure out where I can find certain bulk foods and what sort of packaging is recyclable or is compostable. A lot of the systems we have right now are really complex and really hard for someone to understand. And I think the hardest thing has been just putting in the energy to really have a good idea of what goes into a product. And I still don't fully understand a lot of different things. And that's kind of was one of my reasons behind creating Zero Waste Wisdom. Was I recognized that I had to put in a lot of energy to find these resources, and I wanted to provide them to other people up front. So hopefully it makes the transition a lot easier to zero waste, and they don't have to fumble through and make as many phone calls and visit as many stores as I had to.
Yeah, we appreciate that a lot.
Yes. It's a lot of work.
The Bellingham Zero Waste shopping article that you made, that's how I originally came across you, and I was so amazed that I found that. I didn't think I was going to find anything that was specific to Bellingham, so I've been using that a lot.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a much more detailed version of that right now, with a breakdown that actually goes, it's itemized, so if you're looking for a certain thing, this is where in Bellingham you could find it in bulk. So it's kind of the opposite approach. Rather than highlighting stores, I'm highlighting more of a guide. It's not done yet, but I'll let you know when it is.
Yay! Oh, yay! I'm excited for that. That'll be good. So what are some of your favorite zero waste products that you've come across?
Well, I definitely have some. It's a little tricky because usually a product is packaged. There's not a lot of products that come without packaging. But there are some products that I've switched to. For example, instead of using plastic wrap in the kitchen, I purchased beeswax wrap, which is basically like a cotton cloth that has beeswax and tree resin, and then you attach it over a bowl or a plate, and then afterwards you can wash it and reuse it over and over again. They're also really pretty colors if you buy them designed, so I like those, a lot more aesthetically pleasing. And then I have recently got into a lot more of making my own products, and found that a lot of kind of the DIY do-it-yourself movement can align with zero waste, because you're actively choosing what you're putting in your products, and you can source them from a company you trust and buy them in a packaging that you see beforehand and choose to purchase. So I've been doing a lot of DIY, and recently discovered a mascara recipe that I really love, which was really hard. I tried a whole bunch. But yeah, there aren't a lot of specific products themselves I recommend, mostly because I think it's individualized for the person. If there's something you find in your house that you really want to replace with something, I recommend kind of doing the research on that yourself rather than buying something that I would tell you to buy. But there are a lot of good brands out there, and that's kind of the important thing, is to look at, is this company packaging using paper only or not packaging at all, and their kind of sustainability practices.
And learning how to make things yourself and scheduling that into your time, I imagine, is kind of a struggle.
Yes. Originally it was pretty time consuming, mostly because, like in the case of the mascara recipe, I had to go through 7 different recipes before I found one that actually worked for me. And that in and of itself is time consuming. Now though, I don't think of it as taking up a lot of my time, because I'm not actually having to drive to the grocery store anymore and buy these items. I just have a closet with all the ingredients I need, and when I run out, I remake it, and it takes me 5 minutes or less. And I think that's a lot of the questions I get about the zero waste movement is, doesn't this take a lot of time? In response to that, I say that it takes a lot of time to break your habits. And that's what becomes time consuming, is switching out this idea of buying plastic water bottles to bringing a reusable water bottle, or the figuring out how to make your own lotion and soap. Once you get past that point though, and you've established new habits, I think that it saved me a lot of time.
Awesome. Do you have any other tips or advice to give people who are just starting out with the zero waste lifestyle?
Yeah, so the first thing I usually recommend is do a waste audit, do a trash audit. A lot of people feel really intimidated by that, but it doesn't have to be complicated. What I recommend is if you don't want to get hands-on dirty with your trash, that to put up a piece of paper next to your trash can, and every time you put something in there, write it down, and then you can start tally marking next to it, and do that for a week or a month, depending on how much trash you produce. And then you have like an itemized list, and from that you can start noticing, is there a certain produce that you always buy in packaging? Is there a certain bathroom item that you've been throwing out a lot? And you can kind of itemize and make decisions based on your own personal habits. And then once you have this list, I would just say be patient with yourself, take one thing at a time. I've been doing this for 3 years. I definitely had some fumbling along the way. I made mistakes. I still do. I still make waste. So just kind of have fun with it and figure out things that you're inspired to change, and do those first.
All right. Last question. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us about yourself or the work that you're doing?
Well, I just want to make, I guess, a little pitch for not being afraid to tell other people what you're doing and being open to starting discussions. Because a lot of times when people make a drastic change in their lifestyle, people around them will sometimes push back. And just being open to talking to them, telling them what you're going through. And that's really why I've started giving these local workshops and putting my life out there, is to show people that it doesn't have to be unattainable. And I can break it down into steps that anyone can do. So just not being afraid to start, and then not being afraid to tell people what you're doing. Spread the word. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank
That
you.
was some wonderful information. We really appreciate you doing this interview with us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.